The Salkantay Trek is a multi-day hike in the Peruvian Andes that takes you through beautiful landscapes and ultimately ends in Machu Picchu. Or at least most people think it does.
And if you're new here, we're Blake and Eli, and last November we had the chance to go on the Salkantay Trek, and it was honestly one of our favorite hikes we've ever done. But there were a lot of things that we wish we knew beforehand.
We definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way, so here are 11 things that you should know before doing the Salkantay Trek.
Number 1, the Salkantay Trek is a great alternative to the Inca Trail. Now, there's a lot of differences between these two trails, but I would say the most important ones are price. The Inca Trail starts about $800, while the Salkantay Trek usually starts at $500. And that's because of the second thing, which are permits. You don't have to have special permits to hike the Salkantay Trek when you do have to pay for permits to hike the Inca Trail. In general, the Salkantay Trek is going to be a lot more nature oriented. You get these beautiful lakes, beautiful views, and the difference is you're not going to have as many of the historical ruins that you'll see on the Inca Trail. However, the Salkantay Trek still has historical ruins on it.
The Salkantay Trek does go through a little part of the Inca Trail, so if you really want to experience what it was to be an Inca on the Inca Trail, you do get a little bit of that on the Salkantay Trek.
Also, on the Inca Trail, you are usually camping along the trail versus the Salkantay Trek where you actually have accommodations. And we chose the Salkantay Trek because we actually prefer the nature aspect of the trail over the historical aspect of the Inca Trail. And of course, we would much rather be in this beautiful sky dome than camping in a tent.
Number 2 is climate and seasonality. The Peruvian Andes have very unpredictable weather. In the same day, on the same hike, we could have rain, showers, wind, and sun. So you literally have to be prepared for everything. If you do want to have the lowest chance of rain, try to go between April and October because this is the dry season. We actually went in November, which is a little bit past the end of the dry season, and we experienced a lot of rain and a lot of clouds. So if we were to go back, I would definitely try to make our trip within the dry season.
Number 3, altitude and acclimatization. The starting point of this trek is over 13,000 feet, and at Salkantay Pass, the highest point on the entire trek, it's over 15,000 feet. So you really have to take into account the altitude that you're going to be hiking into. One of the best ways to do that is start acclimatizing early, which means for us, we got into Cusco 2 days before the trek started, and we thought that we were in good shape to hike. However, we both got some pretty bad altitude sickness, me getting probably the worst sickness I've ever had in my life. So we do have some tips for this. Stay longer in acclimatization, maybe one more night than we did. And also you can get prescription altitude sickness pills prescribed to yourself before you make your way to Peru. The last way are the local remedies that you'll see kind of sold everywhere and even out in the wild, and it's heavily dependent on the coca leaf. That's right, you can have coca and your altitude sickness will be much less. However, for us, it didn't really feel like that was the end-all be-all solution, and is definitely not something you should rely on to make sure that you stay safe and healthy on the trail.
Number 4 are tour options. You really have 2 options when doing the Salkantay Trek. Your first one is hiring a tour guide or a tour group, and the other one is doing it self-guided. The main difference is that when you book a local company or a tour guide, you have everything figured out for you. All the logistics, the meals, the guides, and the gear is all just ready for you. If you do choose to do it self-guided, you have to book everything in advance and even find your own entry tickets to Machu Picchu. Our tour was around $500 and we really thought it was fully worth it because our guides were awesome. We had the best group ever and the meals were absolutely delicious.
Number 5, hike difficulty. The entire Salkantay Trek is 43 miles, and if you're not used to multi-day hiking, it is genuinely a difficult trail. The fact that it's also in altitude makes this trail even more difficult than it would be if it was at a lower altitude. One of the things that we learned on the trail is that flat never really means flat. Even Inca flat is a term they use when you're going up and down all day. We hit over 12,000 feet of altitude gained over all of those up and down hills over 5 days. So it is a seriously challenging hike. So I would recommend training for sure for this hike. And if you can train in altitude, that would make it even better. And multi-day hiking is definitely the best way to get yourself in shape for something as challenging as the Salkantay Trek.
Number 6, accommodation and bathrooms. If you do the trek self-guided, you're either going to camp or stay in hostels that you book along the way. For us, with the tour group, we were able to stay in some of the most unique accommodations we've ever stayed. We stayed at the Sky Dome, Andean huts, and even the jungle domes. For the bathroom situation, there are some bathrooms along the way, but you will have to carry your own toilet paper, and you are hiking in the wilderness in the Peruvian Andes, so you might have to squat along the way. And lastly, for showers, we didn't really have that many options for showers. They definitely were not hot showers. I think the 2 showers we had along the way was one after the hot springs and the other was in the hotel right before Machu Picchu. Also, please don't forget that these accommodations are very rustic and they're run by local people. So don't expect to have shampoo and conditioner and have all the amenities. You will have mosquitoes and bugs, and it will not be as clean as you're used to at home, but that's all part of the experience.
Number 8, packing list. On any multi-day hike, it is super important to be prepared and bring everything you need. Some of the most important essentials that we brought on our trip was layered clothing so we can survive the rain, the cold, and the wind, a very good rain jacket, even rain pants could be great. A nice pair of hiking boots are very, very important to have, but perhaps top on my list are hiking poles. If you've ever done a multi-day hike with a lot of weight on your back, they are so important to have with you. And I can't go through everything that we packed here because it would just take too long, but I've created a packing list that you can access below in the description to make sure that you aren't missing anything on your Salkantay trip.
Number 9, food, shops, and cash. With a tour group, you are going to have almost everything included, including the delicious Peruvian dishes. So you don't have to worry about buying food or bringing food for every single day. However, there are little shops along the way that you can get a Coke or a candy or something to brighten your spirits a little bit, so definitely bring cash for that. You'll also need cash to tip your guide and the chefs and anyone else that helps you throughout the trip. Just be aware that some people were very unhappy with the tipping culture. They do expect you to tip every single person that helps you, and they don't expect a small tip, so just be aware that could make you unhappy depending on which tour you pick. And just an obvious reminder, there are no ATMs along the trail, so bring more than you think you need. And then when you get to Aguascalientes, you can get a little bit more cash out for the rest of the trip.
You don't want to be halfway through the trip and not have enough money for toilet paper. Number 10, language barrier. So for the record, Ellie is a native Spanish speaker and I am not. However, I don't think that we ever need to use Spanish on this trail. While we are in very rural places and the shopkeepers will almost entirely speak Spanish, they will definitely understand gestures and things like that. Also, with an international group with a tour guide that's meant to speak English, it was very easy for us to communicate with everyone that we were with and the most important person that was in charge of our safety and getting from point A to B. And if you're really worried about the language, you can download the offline language through Google Translate to make sure that you can still get your toilet paper from the shopkeeper without really having a problem.
Number 11, ending in Aguascalientes and Machu Picchu. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Salkantay Trek does not end in Machu Picchu, unlike the Inca Trail where you arrive looking at Machu Picchu, which is amazing. The Salkantay Trek ends in Aguascalientes, which is a little town right outside of Machu Picchu. You do have an option though to take a train for the last 3 hours and save your legs a little bit, and that's exactly what we did. In this case, you're ending in Hydroelectrica and then you're just going to spend the night in Aguascalientes. The next morning, you're going to take an early bus ride up the mountain to Machu Picchu. Hopefully you have one of the earlier time slots because there's going to be a lot less people. And for Machu Picchu, make sure to research the routes because not every single route goes to the postcard view, and that's probably the most beautiful view of Machu Picchu. You also have a couple different options in Machu Picchu. You can choose to add on one of the hikes to the peaks. We chose to do the Machu Picchu mountain, but if I were to go back, I would do the Huyana Picchu, which is famous for doing the staircase. And last but not least, our honest thoughts. Would we do the Salkantay Trek again?
I think I would do it again.
I would definitely do it again. I think a lot of people would get scared off by the price tag, but I think $500 for everything we did was so worth it.
And to be able to see Machu Picchu after 5 days of, for me, what was a grueling experience, was even more of the reward of such a beautiful world wonder.
Yeah, and definitely I would really recommend you guys to pick a group trip. The people we met, our guide, like the people made it all so worth it. We had such an incredible time with our group of friends and we can't wait to see them again one day.
And while this video should make you feel a little more prepared to actually do the trek, if you want to see what this experience really was like for us, we put out a full vlog on the entire experience so you could actually live through the highs and lows of this incredible 5-day Salkantay Trek.
And please let us know by commenting below if you have any questions. We'll make sure to answer every single one.
And we'll see you next time.